Hey everyone, and welcome to this very special episode of Let's Be Honest with Peter Kozodoy. Honestly, this is take number 2 for me and a very special guest. His name is Kary Oberbrunner, and Kary's the author of Unhackable. Kary, welcome to the show. It's good to have you here, man.
Hey, we just chose not to get hacked, which a lot of people, hey, when life happens, they get hacked, and that's what we're here to talk about today. So I'm thrilled to be with your audience.
All right, love it, and it's good for you to be here. So, for those of you who don't know your work in the book, just take 3 minutes and let everyone know who you are, what you do, and what gets you fired up out there.
Yeah, so basically, I believe that souls on fire are the most powerful weapon on earth. And I believe that we get to be souls on fire when we answer three questions: who am I? Identity. Why am I here? Purpose. And where am I going? Direction. And where those three questions, those three circles converge, we have the opportunity to be a soul on fire.
It's fantastic. I mean, of course, I love that because it's everything I talk about in the book. We
Ooh, I
all lay
love
out
it.
who you are, what you want, and what it takes to get there. Because without that, we're just operating from a foundation of complete bullshit. And no
There you
wonder
go.
so many people end up in a life that they didn't want or design because they
Yes.
weren't honest about it in the first place. So clearly, I'm resonating with that and love that.
Awesome.
So Kary, you're the perfect person to really get into shows called Let's Be Honest, right? So
Yes.
take us to a time over the course of your career, and hopefully we'll get a little more of a glimpse behind some of the people you
Yeah.
help, what you do, and tell us about a time you had to get brutally honest with yourself. What
Wow.
was that like? What was the situation? What did you do, and what happened next?
I'll tell you what, a lot of my early life, I ran from honesty. And it wasn't like I wanted to live a lie on purpose, but I was dealing with a lot of anger, a lot of perfectionism. It turned into actually self-hatred, and I share about this in my book, so it's no secret. But I got into self-injury, and I'm 43, so this was before the days of the internet, and it wasn't for show. It wasn't to post things online. It was literally a way of coping through life. I knew suicide wasn't the answer, and it was a way to essentially just cope with the anger. And I grew up with a stuttering problem back in the early 80s. And so back then they just said, learning disabled, go in this class. And then, like anybody in life, you go through pain. But when you stutter, you don't express yourself. And so I really took a lot of that expression of anger inward. And on the outside, I was a, great guy. Uh, my parents were in ministry. I grew up as a pastor's kid and all that. And so, you don't talk about that. You don't go to God all messed up. You go to him, perfect. That's the lie I told myself. So basically, I just was this achiever who, on the outside, had all the good stuff going, but on the inside, I was really killed by perfectionism. So the way I got out of that was to get honest. And I remember confiding in a professor in grad school about my struggles for the first time ever with self-injury. And I did, because they basically threatened me and said, hey, you're in these counseling classes, but you're not being honest. What's up? And I tried to, like, push stiff arm, but eventually I got honest. And instead of them being like, hey, awesome, come to the fold, you're being honest, they actually said, here's your F. You're not fit to be a counselor, and you don't graduate. And it was like, dang. I mean, you talk about wanting to run back into secrecy, but thankfully I did, through counseling, marrying my wife, and a lot of internal work. I got to the point where I did get to be honest, and he even wrote a book about it eventually, called Your Secret Name, which deals with the lies we all tell ourselves. So I think your brand, my brand, I'm resonating 100%.
So, Kary, you raise an interesting point, and I get this in some of the workshops that I do. It's like there are times when I know the right thing is to be honest, but being honest could result in a negative outcome,
Oh
like the
yeah.
one you described, right? What do you say to those folks? How does one think through that or work through that?
I think this is the classic dilemma of all movies, The Matrix, Dead Poet Society. It's where this is the hero's journey. It's where the hero says, I'm in the ordinary world. I feel the call to adventure. I hear the call, but there's no way I'm going to take it. It's too risky. I'm going to stay safe, stay stuck. And that's what most of the population does. Most of the population says it's not worth it. It's not worth rocking the boat. And they don't want to go off script. And off script could mean this is what your parents say. This is what your society says. This is what you're supposed to do. But my whole life I've been off script, meaning I left the pastorate. So I actually became a pastor, loved many parts of it, but it was claustrophobic. And in that profession, you don't leave unless you steal money or have an affair, So I didn't do either, but I wanted to become an entrepreneur. And it's like, what, are you selling out? But that was the call. I love this quote that my coach told me. He said, you can't take the ring and stay in the Shire. And if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, that makes sense. If not, you're like, what the heck does that mean? but it basically says you can't live a life of adventure and be honest if you're unwilling to get uncomfortable. So I think that we have to get uncomfortable. I think that it is worth the price. There is a cost, but there's a cost for staying mediocre. There's a cost for being average. There's a cost for being status quo. We never talk about that, but that's hey, I'm 85 sitting on a porch. What if I would have? And to me, the cost of regret is way more expensive than the cost of risk.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, one of my biggest fears is mediocrity. And I wish
Yeah.
it were a fear that more people had, because then they would take more quote unquote risks, which of course aren't risks at all. It's, Kary, I've been telling people, like, I'm very fortunate. Like, my book premieres #1 in a couple categories on Amazon.
Love
One
it.
of them is business ethics. And that's nice, right? I think people should be ethical and moral and all that crap, but that's not what this is about. This is about, to your point, the cost and opportunity cost that we incur when we decide to be honest or not honest, and not just honest, but strategically, brutally honest. And
Yes.
what all those little micro decisions add up to over time, and making sure people understand that just because you don't think about the cost, it
Mhm.
is quantifiable. The
Yeah.
opportunity is there that you don't take. And I think, you phrased it in one of the best ways I've heard, which is that the time in which that opportunity cost is most quantifiable is when it's too late, right? When you're able to
Absolutely.
reflect back on a life that you can't then repeat. And
Yeah.
I think there are some people that intuitively get this, and there are many people in the middle that really need to be pushed to understand that there is both a cost and an opportunity cost. And to your point, one of the ways I phrase it is, I have always found, to my surprise, that the opportunity cost was higher than any cost I incurred from making a bold move.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this is the point of being unhackable. Like we talk about unhackability and getting hacked, and it's no longer computers, smartphones, bank accounts. Those are all costly, but it's our brains, which are made up of, our bodies are made up of systems: circulatory, respiratory, pulmonary, and our brains are like supercomputers. So literally, when someone or something gains unauthorized access to us, we get hacked. And to your point, Peter, it's our dreams, it's our lives. And a lot of people just say, put me back in the matrix, erase my brain. I'm fine being hacked every day. And we literally are in a society now where human knowledge doubles every 12 hours, not every 1,000 years. We make 35,000 decisions a day. Like, we are in a battle, and you will be hacked unless you go against the flow.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. I mean, the first chapter of my book is fraud is our fault. We are the
Oh,
ones who open that door to being misled, to the misleading Facebook post, to the misleading news headline, to the like, it's
yes.
us. We have personal responsibility, which I think are two words that unfortunately have been lost in our current society. But
Absolutely.
so, Kary, looking back on everything you've done, I mean, you've shared a couple stories, certainly. What are you the most proud of? And then share with us, what you're the least proud of looking back over everything you've
It's a
accomplished.
great question. Wow. The most proud of, I would say, building a team. Um, I think that we all think in the beginning, at least I did, that a solopreneur, no strings attached. I mean, employee freaked the heck out of me, like that term. I don't want employees. I don't want anything that's going to hold me back. And I think that that was true for a season. But this last year, I purposely took on 2 employees. I now have about 36 people I write checks to every month. And so I've gone from this, hey, here's my dream, to now let's ignite souls globally. And I'll just tell you that, is it more complex? Yes, it is. But I feel like it's now a movement. And so the cool thing is it's bigger than me. So by that, I mean, we are a global publishing company as well. And we're publishing over 1,000 authors now. And all their messages are now igniting souls. So the legacy piece is there, but the control, you lose control. So I've fully lost control, and I admit that, and it's a good thing because it's outgrown me.
Yeah.
The thing that I'm, would you call it, least proud of?
I
Yeah,
used to use the word regret, and too many people took issue with it, so I
there you
changed
go. Hey, I'll use regret just for you. But I would say for 12 years, I kind of lived that victim card where, hey, Kary, what's your biggest problem? My boss. What's your biggest obstacle? The board. Like, in other words, I worked in a church and loved a lot of it, and I told others to live a big game, an adventurous game, a risky game. And I almost never left because 3 kids, wife, mortgage, health insurance, you name it, So at 35, I did leave about 7, 8 years ago, but I waited really long, and I feel like it was the right time. It still was crazy tough, but if I would have waited longer, that's when you start saying, well, I've been here this long, I'll just stick it out. And like, I almost crossed that mark, which would have been so detrimental. So I just encourage anybody, like, it doesn't matter your age. If you're watching Peter's live stream here today, this is not by accident. Get his book, give him a 5-star review, because you find value in what he does, and realize that he's a guy who is saying yes to his dreams, and therefore he's qualified to lead you. So that was the big gap. That's the integrity gap that a lot of thought leaders, authors have, is like, hey, go live a big dream. And then it's like, well, what are you doing? Nothing. Totally. So I encourage everybody, like, I don't care. My mom just finished her first book at the age of 70.
Wow.
And so, yeah. So you're never too old. You're never too young.
That's amazing. It's an amazing. More people need to hear that.
Yeah.
And more people need to get out of the fear. I mean, and I back it up even further, Kary, and I think you'd agree, to get out of the ego, right? To all those internal messages that they're just not even true.
Yeah.
And yet it forms the operating basis of so many folks out there. And that's what I was hoping to attack. And it sounds like that's the first line of defense of making us unhackable. Am I right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I tell people in the book that you will always seek out to be hacked until you have what's called your boon. And I know you're into some of the hero's journey stuff, but the hero's journey, that's the whole reason they go on the adventure, is because there's this boon. I call it your greatest ache, your deepest longing, your truest passion. And it's what you're willing to suffer for. That's what the Greeks defined passion, not how much you love something, but how much you were willing to suffer for something. So I would encourage your listeners, like, what are you willing to suffer for? and that's not real popular. You won't find it on a Hallmark card. But I think Peter, you would agree that like your dream is worth suffering for.
Of course. Or give it up.
Yeah.
Stop complaining about it, I'd say. Is the
Yes.
middle ground I don't want.
Absolutely. So you need that to identify that boon first. And once you do, then you say it's not worth getting hacked over. But before that, you actually crave distractions. And we have an assessment that's free. It's at unhackablebook.com, but you can literally take it and say, okay, what is my unhackability score? Because until, everyone's like, oh, I don't use my smartphone. And yet then you look at your usage and it's like pre-COVID 5 hours, post-COVID 12. And it's not just that technology is not the enemy. Technology is not the enemy, but technology, if you've seen The Social Dilemma, it is literally designed to get you to pay attention, not pay cash, pay attention, eyeballs, eardrums. And so it's designed like a slot machine, pull it down and scroll and see if you got anything. And so all these dopamine hits are a substitute for the real passion of our true dream.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself. So you lead perfectly into, for people that want to know more about you, where can they find you?
Yeah, just go to unhackablebook.com and even /free. We have no email opt-in and a ton of stuff. How do you find out your boon? 80 questions, what is some of this hero's journey thing? So I just know that this book's in my opinion, it's the great antidote to 2020, because everybody knows 2020 was like, hey, the economy, politics, racism, it all hacked us. But stop sitting there and actually become unhackable. And I know your book is a perfect companion. And I think those two books together would Brutally Honest plus Unhackable. That's a great combo right there.
Makes a wonderful Christmas gift for the untrustworthy in your life.
Yeah, there you go.
Kary, thank you so much. Can you hold the book up for everyone to see?
Yeah,
folks?
yeah. Unhackable, close the gap between dreaming and doing. And it's really there's no chapters. It's a 30-day missions, 30 days of missions to become flawless ideas, superhuman focus, and achieve optimal human performance through flow.
I love that. And listen, folks, some of you are action-oriented types. Others are people that are going to sit there in their own drool and not know what any of this means. Don't be the latter. Go to Amazon, Google Unhackable, go to unhackablebook.com, get the book.
Yeah.
Get the book. I mean, when people, they tell me like, oh, I heard Kary on your show, Peter, and that was so cool. I said, did you go buy his book? Oh, well, no. Oh, so you just want to be hackable for the rest of your life? Like, go get the book, people.
Yeah.
Take actions. In those little micro actions, you are telling yourself something, that you are going to be unhackable, that you are going to keep learning, that you're open-minded enough to know that there is more to do and learn and grow out there in the world. So, or just don't complain to me when you don't achieve results in your life. It's not
there you go. There you go.
Kary,
well, listen, you're an inspiration to all of us, because I know you're younger than me, and it sounds like you got your head screwed on pretty straight.
I don't know about that. I think my wife would disagree, but working on it every day.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, man, my pleasure. So, Kary, thank you so much for being on the show. You're welcome to come back anytime, man.
Awesome. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. And for those of you out there who've listened to this, thanks, of course, for listening in. Very special. I don't know where you're listening, but now this is getting turned into an official podcast. You can find it on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, all those happy places. And Kary, I'm actually going in to record the audiobook this Friday. So you get to be my last show before.
Big congrats, man. The audiobook. I love it. It's a great process.
Love it. Thanks again. Thanks for everyone out there. Thanks for being honest. Until next time, I'm Peter Kozodoy. Take care.
See ya.